I'm going to set us up and then we'll do our welcome to the podcast.
Perfect.
Okay, the setup is this. I'm very, very pregnant. I'm not literally very pregnant in this moment, but there was a time when I was very, very pregnant. Do I have to pause for a second?
No.
What's he doing?
You see the little foot going up and down?
Why is he doing that?
Pull-ups.
Oh, pull-ups. He's doing pull-ups. I don't know. I thought you were like showing us your shoe.
It's just your little shoe was going up and down.
He's a strong man. See, I knew it. I knew the nickname was
strong
applicable.
man. My husband is doing pull-ups on a pull-up bar that goes into the door frame.
Yeah.
And we just could see its little one
little
foot going up and down and up and down very smoothly.
Yeah, he's doing great. That's actually hard. So well done. Okay, the setup is this. It's a few years ago. I'm very, very, very pregnant with baby number 2 or 3. I can't remember. They both happened so fast and so close to each other. It probably happened for both, honestly. But one particular moment, I left the house in tears. I have baby in a stroller. Oh, there it is. So it's Jules. I'm pregnant with my 3rd.
There's another baby.
Yep. In tears. And I'm like, I just don't know if I can handle another baby. So much change all at once. And I longed desperately for someone to just give me a pep talk through this transition. It's not that I didn't actually want the baby. It's not that I didn't know in my gut that somehow we would figure it out, because you can have that and still feel like a mess.
Yeah.
But so I went on Spotify and I'm like searching for podcasts and I don't even know what to look for, but it's something like transition, parenting, new baby, like just somebody tell me something good. There was good stuff, but nothing that like really hit. And what I would like to create today with you is the hitting message, the one that is like, you're going through a transition. Could be you're adding a new baby to the family. Maybe it's your first baby. Maybe you're about to get married. Maybe you're about to break up with someone or move to a new country. This is like a similar message to what I needed when I was moving overseas with Eloise as a 1-year-old. I want us to talk about the challenge of transition, the fear as we approach the new thing, and then kind of give them some tools to know that it's going to be okay and like some things you can actually do. And this applies to any and all major life transitions that might have you in some tears, thinking like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off. Yeah. And a lot of times those big transitions are accompanied by excitement. Like, oh, I know I'm going to love this baby, or I know I'm going to move to this place and it is ultimately going to be a good, special thing. Yeah. And you can still feel really freaked out. So welcome to Very Good Mothers Club's podcast. No, I said that badly. Welcome to, hi, I'm Jessica Hover. I'll just do that. You do the big part. I don't do this. Okay. Hi, I'm Jessica Hover. My friends call me Jess.
I'm Lane Dealing-Sherland, and this is Very Good Enough, a podcast from Very Good Mothers Club.
Gosh. You have gone through big transitions as well.
Yeah.
So you didn't have this new baby crying moment, but you've had moments probably that felt similar. What would yours be that come to mind?
Yeah, transitions come in so many forms, and some of them are like stuff that you chose, and then some of them are like good things that got forced on you, and then some of them are like, oh, I just like have to go through this bad thing now because of somebody else's choice.
Yes.
You know, I feel like I have the range of those.
Totally.
Like my parents got divorced when I was an adult.
Yes.
And I left preschool. That was a big one. I thought I was going to be a preschool teacher forever.
Oh, yeah. Not like as a child leaving preschool.
When I exited preschool, it felt like a really big transition for me. Listen, lady.
We've been deeply emotional our whole lives.
I didn't go to preschool because I grew up somewhere where people thought you should, quote, raise your own children.
That's
which,
right.
you know, you're all raising your own children, daycare or not.
Yes,
but there were feelings about that where I grew up. And so I did not go to preschool.
Okay.
Also, childcare is expensive.
It is
didn't do expensive things either. I exited my teaching career after it was like a very gnarly year.
Okay.
Like I left preschool after a bunch of really intense things happened, telling my boss, who was my very dear friend, like, I think I have to go because I just feel like now I'm carrying around a lot of sad balloons in this building, and I feel like they just keep getting caught on the doorway every time I come in and out of a door, and I just don't think I can keep carrying these sad balloons.
Oh my gosh. The visual of the sad balloons.
I was at that time a preschool teacher, so there were
there are a lot of visuals and a lot of balloons,
yes,
probably.
and a lot of balloons.
Wow.
So that was like kind of a mixture of like, I'm choosing to do this. I didn't choose to be sad.
Totally. And job transitions are major. And anything that we kind of find our identity in, whether we want to or not, something that is kind of all consuming and you really want to do a great job and you want to succeed and you want to be impactful.
Yeah.
And
being Miss Lane was like a big deal to me of like,
Miss
but I'm the one who knows. And everybody's like, I don't know, ask Miss Lane. And I just like knew where to be all the time. So that was a big one. I got married and that's a transition.
Those are happier balloons, but also they still get caught in the doorway. The marriage balloon.
I exited my faith, and that's a huge one. Maybe we'll do that one another time.
Whoa. I love
that's
that about you.
Way more inside transition.
Yeah, no. But it's transition nonetheless, and it's identity. Yeah, there's so much to this.
Did I say any good ones? Because there are really good ones, right?
Yeah.
I also transitioned into being a preschool teacher.
You did.
I moved to Los Angeles, which I worked really hard for.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good example because it's something that I wanted so badly and was like so focused on. And it was very challenging.
Well, even your business, even this, what we're doing, there was a transition element that was hard and good kind of combined. You figuring out.
Yeah, that nobody wants to buy preschool curriculum.
or perhaps that's not where your heart is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that aligns.
I want to make it.
Yeah.
This is better.
Yeah. So transition. Okay. Usually what happens in the transitions that are daunting and lead us to a point of tears, pushing a stroller down a street, majorly big, that's how I felt when you're like at that stage of pregnancy where you're like overwhelmed by your own body. That's what I felt. Okay.
Yeah, what a transition that is, just to be like,
your body
I had sex and then I went to the doctor and then kind of nothing happened for a while except I threw up and then my whole now I'm in a transition where I'm a different shape.
Yeah, it's so true.
Like, do you like run into things when you're the wrong shape?
For sure.
Your whole body
Talk
has
about
been...
balloons caught in a door. Your body is the balloon that is caught in the door. Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
Yeah. I when I said big, I had a flashback to when I used to work fashion events. You're not allowed to refer to bodies as big, rightly so, because the people you're talking about, like, that's not a right way. So when I said it, I immediately like yelled at myself, like, you're not allowed to say that. But I just am going to be honest about how I felt while pregnant. That would be the adjective.
Well, compared to what your body was before to growing a baby, it is in fact bigger than it used to be.
Exactly. So I don't want to offend anyone. Your body is a wonderland. You look beautiful. We all do. Okay. And you feel like... I felt like the Grinch. I felt like Santa. Anyway, okay, so I'm Santa walking down the street, pushing my baby.
You're both Santa and the Grinch, pushing the stroller down the street.
Exactly. And I'm thinking about the future and I'm freaking out. And I'm freaking out about so many things. So I'm freaking out like time-wise, am I going to handle this? Emotionally, am I going to handle this? Am I going to fall apart? Is my relationship going to handle this? What about my other relationships, my friendships, the dynamic of, I don't know, like hanging out with my friends. Am I ever going to hang out with my friends? I'm going to have all these other things to do, all these other people to take care of. Your mind kind of goes in this spin of fear. That's for me. It was a fear spin and I needed someone to like stick their hand out and interrupt that spinning thing and be like, no, calm down. In the calming down moment, what I found to be helpful, and this is like, it's a process and this is after many transitions. What I found to be helpful is a bit of pausing and looking backwards at the other hard things I've already done, that we've already overcome, we've already made it through, or the ways that goodness surprised me. Like, oh yeah, I was pretty afraid of this thing. And then I did it. And it turned out it was great for all of these reasons. So like a looking backwards at that, what I can tell you now is that I have 3 kids and it's so much better than I thought. It's so like the fear, while valid, I guess, like while I look back at that person that I was and go like, yeah, that was scary. So that she wasn't a crazy lady. She was scared. That was a lot. The more I understood like, okay, I'm afraid that I won't have the support I need. What I was able to pull from that is get more support. Okay. Once I got more support, things were a lot easier. Right. So, I don't know, I guess just to like speak that over you, the thing that you're afraid of is probably going to be way better than you think. And if possible, maybe we can identify what in those fears are things that we could actually do something about. So instead of just spiraling and crying, like what could we change? What could we prepare for? How could we make sure that this transition, while it's probably going to be challenging no matter what, because they usually are, what could we do to set ourselves up for success and set our people up for success?
I love that. I like the idea of looking at your fear and asking like, is there a need underneath this fear? And can I put something in place to take care of that need? And then you can say, okay, it's okay if you still feel scared because I have an answer about that one. And of course, there will be some that are big, the giant, like, am I still going to be able to have a relationship with this other baby when this new baby, like there are big, but even that being like, you know what I'm going to do for sure is I'm going to plan 25 minutes into the day, every day where I'm like, this one is Wilson time. Somebody else is in charge of this other baby for 25 minutes. And I know for sure that for at least this small period of time, Wilson gets to be just with me every day. So like even some of those big ones, there are things that you can put in place to say, I'm scared because I need something. I need something to exist in the future. What can I do to make sure that that thing exists in the future now? And then you start to kind of take the legs out from underneath your fear and it can still float around like a little cloud and it will, but you can say like, yeah, thank you. Thanks for letting me know. I know about you. I have a plan for that.
Totally. Yeah. And even to be able to express it, like maybe you're in this mode of like, I'm afraid and I actually don't know how to solve the thing I'm afraid of. Maybe just expressing it to your partner, your sibling, like whoever's going to be around, like, hey, when the time comes that this change happens, I'm afraid I won't take care of myself anymore. I'm afraid I'll just fall apart mentally. I'm afraid I won't know how to manage my time between my kids. And at this point, I don't know how to solve that problem because I don't even know what it's actually going to look like once this change happens. So could you just be aware of this with me? And then when the time comes, like check in and maybe problem solve with me as that time kind of unfolds. That even can provide a sense of relief inside. And like if the person is a good listener and they're pretty understanding, even just their empathy, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I could see why you're afraid of that. I think we'll be okay, but I don't know how exactly because we're not there yet. That can help calm the nerves inside. And I'm thinking that like some changes, they just really do take time and that stinks and we would love to rush everything. But I remember when I moved to Spain and I was struggling a lot the first year, I met kind of accidentally with this counselor who counsels people who have moved to a different country. I didn't schedule an appointment with her. She happened to be sitting next to me at this place we were attending for a weekend. And she was like, oh, I just want you to know, because I had expressed sort of what was surprisingly hard about the move. And she was like, oh, I just want you to know that like, generally speaking, it takes a year for people to sort of feel like they're a little bit settled in their place. And it typically takes 2 years for them to feel like, ooh, we've got this. My neighbors know me. Like I'm good here. And just for her to say that, and she speaks with all kinds of people who have moved to all kinds of places, it was so validating because I arrived to this new country that I had been to many times and had friends there. And I was so impatient with myself and frustrated. Like, how come you can't pull this off? Why are you living in this life that looks really beautiful outwardly, but inwardly you feel like you're sinking, like something's wrong? Just to know like, oh, it takes time. This is a huge transition and I'm still in the new mom stage. I don't know, the tendency to want to rush processes. We all feel that. So we're not alone, but that doesn't make it the way, you know?
Right. Right. But I love the idea that getting accurate information about what you're going through could calm you in a way that just like trying to make yourself feel better or make yourself be more patient couldn't.
Yeah.
And setting up realistic expectations, like getting good enough information to have realistic expectations about the thing that you're going through. It's pretty rare that we're going through something that no one's ever gone through before, you know, and each circumstance has its own details. So it is, of course, like your experience is singular.
Yeah.
But there probably is information about whatever thing you're about to go through, and you could find out a lot of the things that are kind of typical. How long does this kind of typically take?
Yeah.
What do people typically experience when they go through this? So even if you have little aberrations here and there from that typical experience, at least you know that other people don't feel settled in their home 2 weeks later.
Yes.
And other people don't feel like this perfect community come around them the second they move across the world. You know, like knowing what to feel like, oh, something unusual is happening here, or knowing how to feel like this is normal, don't love it. I don't enjoy this feeling in this very normal thing.
Yeah.
Like that can be very, very soothing and confidence building.
Definitely. I guess that's going to segue me back into what I always end up saying, which is like mute people on social media. I think that what you're describing is the real thing of like, get to know what people are actually experiencing and kind of find your people who, I don't know, arrive into motherhood and it's not quite what they expected, arrive into marriage, it's not quite what they expected, arrive to moving to their new country and it's not what they expected. Social media has a way of showing us just like the highlights, right? So we see someone who became a mom or had their third kid or their sixth kid and they're doing incredibly well. And oh my gosh, they're so satisfied and so fulfilled. And they moved to this country and oh my gosh, look how beautiful everything is. That's not even a complete picture of what they're feeling. If we really like opened this all up and we're like, so what's really going on? There would be so much more to unpack. But I think that when we're struggling, we can accidentally end up scrolling on social media and just reiterating this message that we're doing it wrong. But look at all of these happy moms. Or sometimes, you know, you like do open up to someone in your life, the one person who didn't feel any of the feelings you're feeling. And they're like, oh, no, I don't remember struggling when I had another kid or when I moved or got married or switched jobs or something. And then you just feel a little crazy. That doesn't mean you're crazy. Like you might just need to go find someone else somewhere else who experienced similar feelings to you. So you could like get a therapist, right? Because they're trained to be able to relate to you whether or not they've ever felt what you feel. Or you go inside of a community or join Very Good Mothers Club and talk to the people in there. And the vulnerability of being like, this is how I feel. Does anyone in here relate? Someone else relates. Absolutely, they relate. They understand. They've been there. Not everybody, but somebody. And I think that just finding somebody who knows is so helpful. And if they're further along than you, then they're like, oh yeah, I felt that too. Here's some things I did that worked or really didn't work. Like, let's be a little team in figuring this out. And that is so helpful.
So helpful.
When I was depressed, we went to group therapy. Just me. And I guess some other people.
Me and my alter ego.
Me and all the
me
feelings
and
I
her.
had.
She went with me.
The selves I had at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm in this room and it's a bunch of people and we have all of these different stories. And like at a glance, we don't look the same. Like, I mean, some of them were coming from jail, like they were getting driven there there was a lot going on in this room. There were people who were much more successful than me in career. And I mean, just at a glance, you'd be like, whoa, this person, wow. And then there were some people who some of them were homeless, some were in jail. I don't know. It was just like such an eclectic group of people. Okay. We get there. They lead us in this process of sharing what we're going through. So it's not about our status in the world. It's not about anything on paper like that you would measure, like how much money do they have? How good are they? Whatever. Just like, what do you feel and what's hard? And we all related. Every person who shared what they're going through, even though the stories, like the way they're playing out, are very different. The feelings, the fear, the brokenness, the desire to be good, but the struggle with the things that hold us back. It was the same. And it was so healing. And it was just like the counselors actually didn't do much. It was mostly like, let's have somebody share and let's have the rest of the people in the room respond.
Yeah.
And it's actually not that different from what we do in the Very Good Mothers Club calls. It's this idea that like there's so much power in being your true self and then having other people hear you and validate you and encourage you
Yeah.
and have a lot in common with you, even if you wouldn't go into it thinking that you have a lot in common. Does that make sense? It was just beautiful. And I think for me, leaving that experience, I had this whole new take on like my own perspective on my life and like how I was going to do my second year in Spain and how I was going to take care of myself and raise my kids. And I would have never thought that that would be the key thing, is like find all of these people that have all these different lives and put us in a room. I just didn't know. So yeah, just the power of having people around you who feel similar feelings.
I love that. That shared reality is like very sane making of like, yes, feelings like this are real.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have them because it's so, I feel like we so quickly put ourselves in this tiny little corner where we're all alone and everyone else is like normal. But I'm over here being so fucking crazy. And you just like, and then it like turns these inside judging eyeballs onto yourself. And then you just look down at your little self in this corner all alone.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where you get into some darkness.
Yeah.
And where you stop being able to trust yourself to just move forward, because the truth about any transition is that it's just a day and it's just you in a day. That day, it's just you, you're just there, and it feels this kind of way, and maybe different things happened than before. But like, even when you just like move cities, like the first time I did that when I was 19, I was like, oh, what's it going to be like? And then 2 weeks later, I was like, it's just me doing what I do here instead of there, you know,
right.
and you're just yourself inside these days.
That's right.
Unless you get really alienated from yourself and have like turned on yourself in that way, you know, that way where it's like, I'm the bad one or the weird one or the whatever. And then it gets funky when you can't trust your own reality. And so to have other people around you saying like, yeah, I felt like that too. It just like really brings you back down to the ground, back into your body, being like, okay, I didn't invent this feeling. I haven't invented this way of like not knowing where my feet go in the world or what to do with my hands. Like that's very normal. And people in all kinds of experiences have this reaction to changes in their lives.
That's right.
And that's okay. And if you can have like a coherent narrative, if you can put a context and a story around what you're going through, then that's something that you can refer back to very frequently. And even when you go through something real bad, if you have like a true and reasonable narrative around it, you can like make your way through a lot more safely.
That's right.
Inside, because you know what's happening. And then even if you're like tumbled like a wave by the experience of it, you know, like, okay, there is a story around this though. This moment feels really bad, but this is what's happening to me. And this is why, and this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that like really steadies you.
Totally. You talking was reminding me, have we talked about this? The documentary on Netflix called Stutz by Jonah Hill. Okay. So you remember the part about the life force pyramid?
Yeah.
So he talks about just basically in all of life, if you're struggling, the first thing that he would go to is this pyramid, which if you want to watch the documentary, it's really good. It's super meaningful. But basically he draws this pyramid and there's 3 lines. The bottom is your relationship with your body. And he talks about just the basics like nutrition and sleep, which new moms, it feels unfair that anybody would bring up sleep because you're like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But just anything you can do to allow your body to get some rest during this initial stage of transition with a new baby. Even like, can someone else feed the baby for a period so that you can get a longer stretch if you're feeling super desperate for sleep and you're feeling so depressed that like things are off, which you know, if you've been, sleep is super important, right? So your body, moving your body is really healthy. Obviously, if you're in the initial postpartum stage, you probably need to be resting your body more than moving your body. But just in general, the endorphins that we create when we get exercise, when we stretch, it's really helpful for us. The next line in the pyramid is relationships, and he talks about the power of just connecting with other people, even if the other people aren't that interesting. Even if you're joining a Zoom call with a bunch of moms in different parts of the world and you're like, this is sort of awkward and I'm not really my best self. He talks about the power of engaging with other people and the way that it helps us inside of ourselves. And it's basically like, it's good for us to communicate with others. It's like a muscle we're exercising, but it's also really helpful to hear what other people are going through and kind of disconnect a little bit from our focus on like everything we're feeling all the time and like, what are they going through? What are they struggling with? How can I actually give from my life experience and help them get through theirs? That's really meaningful. And then the last one on the top is like your relationship with yourself. And he talks about the power of like journaling or meditating or things where you're kind of tuning in, like, what is going on? What are these feelings that I'm having? How can I put words to them? Once we can identify what they are, we can move beyond it to like meeting needs or making a change. For example, loneliness. If we're really lonely, like I moved to Spain, I was struggling a lot because I was the sole caretaker for Eloise. And a lot of my friends there didn't have kids. I think none of them had kids yet. And so there was this sense that I like was lonely. I think I was lonely in a way that I didn't know how to describe. Once I did the group therapy thing, I got on a bit of medicine. I started meeting with a therapist, a psychiatrist. Everybody was pointing out, like, I think you need to shift your lifestyle a bit. I think that what you're describing is a sense of loneliness, a desire to have a life that's separate from your daughter so you can be filled back up to then be with your daughter. Yeah. It all made perfect sense. So then we ended up getting her into like this preschool daycare thing for a few hours a week. I was able to then go take care of myself in a different way, which I hadn't before. But all of that had to come out of real honesty about how was I doing. So for a long time, I was smiling and pretending, not really meaning to. I think my motives were like, if you keep acting like it's okay, it'll eventually be okay. Like this is just a season, right? Yes. But it didn't work. I was wrong. So I don't want to do that anymore. But anyway, I feel like that's kind of helpful if you can have this breakdown of like, okay, I need to take care of my body. I need to cultivate some relationships with other people to make sure I'm not alienating and doing what you're talking about, the isolation thing. Right. And I need to be in touch with myself enough to know what is going on and how can I find help. If everything is just us living in a day, the way she described it, I love it. It's like perfect. It makes it less daunting. It's not like, how am I going to deal with these future 18 years with this new child? Right. No. How can I get through today? And then tomorrow when it arrives, how can I get through tomorrow? And I like, this comes from a faith background, but this idea that like the grace we need will be there for the day. There's even like the biblical story of like the manna that they needed was there in the day. And actually when they tried to store up for later, it went bad. What we have is today. Yeah. And what we will need tomorrow will be there tomorrow when we arrive, but we're not there yet. So we imagine the future covered in fear, but the grace that we need will be there when we get there. We're just not there yet. So I sometimes have to bring myself back to like, what does it look like to be here today and to trust that everything I need for today is here now. And it's already here. Yeah. And then later it'll come when it needs to come.
I want to actually just tell that story.
Yeah.
It's from the Old Testament and take it however you want. If that's your faith background, perfect. And if just take it as like a beautiful, useful myth otherwise, which is how I process it. But it's such a beautiful story that I want to make sure that everybody knows what it is. Yeah. Talking about manna from heaven. And manna is an interesting word because it shows up kind of around the world somewhere else. As also like life force, like people who play video games, sometimes that's used in there. There's like a Newman or manna as like the thing that keeps you alive and generates power inside. You can like increase it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm saying that wrong, but it's a thing.
Okay.
In the Bible or in the
Old Testament,
there's a story where God's people are wandering around in the wilderness, which they have to do. For a really long time. And they get to this place where they're like really desert and there's really nothing. And so they've eaten everything and there's like there's nothing to sustain them. And God promises that he's going to take care of them. And he begins to send them food from heaven. Yeah.
We were just talking to each other.
This husband has been very disruptive today. When she comes, stick your
Are you
little
coming
face
out
over
here to
here and
flex?
be cute.
He's like, do you guys want to see my muscles
I
that I
really
work
thought
so
you guys
hard for?
were-
You thought I was just telling Jess a Bible story for fun.
No. You were just saying like I think we should tell that story.
That is
I
so
think we should
cute.
tell you going. Sorry.
Wow, I'm such a good storyteller,
You
and he just
are.
cuts the legs out from under me. Just kidding.
Okay, I love it. So manna from heaven.
Wilderness. So
Okay.
the thing that ends up happening is that God's like, listen, I'm going to send you everything that you need. And in the morning, they wake up and the ground is covered in some kind of food that is simple and sweet and good to eat. It's not their favorite food in the whole wide world,
Yeah.
but it's enough to sustain them. And every single day, when they wake up in the morning, there's new food for them to eat, enough to just get them through this time period. And they learn that you can't store it overnight. It goes
Because
bad
they do. They
immediately.
like freak out and they're like, oh my gosh,
course.
it's here. What if it's not here tomorrow?
Like we all do.
Yes.
They look to the future and think, oh no, what I need isn't going to come in the future. So if it's here now, then I need to hoard it. I need to hide. I need to keep it away from, I need more than other people get. Right. We
Yeah.
get into these weird things because we're looking forward away from the day that we're in, and the food goes immediately rotten every time that they do that.
Yeah.
Like you can't have it. And yet if they simply wait and trust, then every single morning when they wake up, there's new provision from
to
above
nourish them.
to nourish them.
Yeah.
This is
I reached out to Ruben to ask about the sink this morning, and I said, let me know before you send anyone over.
Gotcha.
He's recording. I
Gotcha.
need to coordinate.
Gotcha.
And he was like, okay, Dave's coming right now. I was like, don't send Dave. Can Dave come at 12? He's like, this is the only time he can do it.
Okay, y'all, we're going to pause our podcast because now my house has to get fixed. Okay, speaking of rough transitions,
We did just live one.
we just lived one.
Yeah.
My landlord barged in to tell me that there's nothing wrong with my home, which smells like
Yeah.
chemicals,
It does smell like chemicals
Yeah.
this whole time.
which means there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So enough
that's good.
manna for today is going to be me having patience with this landlord.
Yeah,
As
which
he
you
tells
just,
me.
you nailed it. It's good that I get to witness moments like this. She handled herself so well. Someone tried to tell her that nothing was going on. So I got to watch you live your value of being like, no, but something is going on.
Yeah.
It smells like this.
Yeah.
It does. It smells like a chemical. I thought someone was cleaning the bathroom.
Yeah, it smells like toilet bowl cleaner, which not the toilet bowl cleaner that I have, which we've smelled to check. So it's not that.
Yeah. Okay, well, you were
Anyways,
just telling
manna
this
from
beautiful
heaven,
story.
Yes. So the thing about anxiety and stress during a transition and not is this part where we choose to try and live ahead of the moment that we're currently in. And we don't have the grace or the strength or the resilience or the provision for the moment that we're not in. That
That's
doesn't
right.
exist because we're not in that, and we don't have to worry about it. And of course, there's planning that needs to be done, and there's like a thoughtful, forward-looking way to live your life. But in terms of like, I'm going to have my emotions live ahead of where I am. It's a stretch that your system can't maintain, right?
Yeah.
Your emotions need to stay inside,
Yeah.
and you need to stay with yourself now. And you also just have to trust that like you exist, which means that there's provision for you to exist.
Yeah.
And I don't always know totally what that's about, but I know that life really catches you. I know that you and I and most of them are people who have really tried to make decisions that work well for us and set things in motion for our future that are going to be good. And we just have to trust that we are not the only person in the world for whom the bottom's going to fall out and we're going to just like fly off the planet and disappear.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah, absolutely. And there is something to believing that you can call it God, you can call it anything. I'm reading a book currently that's calling it the source because it's even meant for people who don't believe in any sort of like faith thing, to understand that the world we live in is working towards our good, and believing that serves you. It serves you to understand that like you'll breathe out and there will be air for you to breathe in next. It's not just going to disappear. It's here. In fact, it's happening so much we don't even realize the gift it is that oxygen is here now. I was thinking as you're speaking that like we are nature. I've said this, if you've been around a while, you know, we're nature. We're not a machine. We're not a phone that you just like, oh, it's dead. Okay, plug it back in. Like, oh, it's not working. You know what? Turn it off, turn it back on. figure out, like, do the update thing, and then you'll just like be caught up. We're nature. If one of these plants starts to need to be trimmed, right, you're going to trim it and then nourish it, and over time new growth will happen, but it won't be immediate.
Yeah.
If something's not working, you might have to shift positions, give it more light, give it different kind of soil. Like, I don't know, there's slow growth that is a part of nature. It is who we are.
Yeah.
And all of these transitions go into that, because in order for us to transition and be okay, well, actually, if we're going to take the plant thing, if you're going to move something, if you're going to move a tree from one place to the next, there is going to be a time where that plant needs to adapt to its new place, even if the new place is the better place,
right,
and ultimately is going to be the place where that thing flourishes. There still is going to be a process of adapting to that new position and figuring out what that looks like. And for all of us, the new thing that we're walking into, even if it's really crappy, even if it's not something we chose, the way that I see it and the way that I choose to see it, I think would maybe be a right way, is like, this can be good. This can be the better way. We are adaptable. We're resilient. We are just so pretty. Look at you. And even hard things. Okay, Becca told me yesterday that Walt Disney got fired from one of his early jobs for not being creative enough. I loved that. I loved that.
Yeah.
Apparently Bill Gates' first business failed. Loved that. There are going to be things that we do that don't work out.
Right.
And that's going to involve transition too. And even then, there is hope for this next stage being better than the last stage, or being good in new ways that we don't know to expect.
Yeah, I don't know if like everything happens for a reason. I really don't know about that, but I am confident that there is opportunity inside of every single thing. Everything is opportunity. And with you always is whatever the thing is that makes the plant grow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what that part is. And I put them by windows, and I give them water, and I give them whatever. I don't make them grow, and they don't make themselves grow.
Yeah.
And so like that is a piece that you can trust. Whatever makes the plant grow is the same thing that tells your lungs to breathe in the next time. And that part is
tells
just
you to
always with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important for you to say that, because there are some of us in this community who are grieving real losses. Real painful losses. We know, because we hear from you and you're telling us what's going on. And what we're not saying is, well, that happened for a reason and this will all be great.
Yes.
I don't know. It didn't happen for a reason. Definitely not going to feel great right now. And that's okay. And you're not crazy. And this is awful. And that thing that makes the plant grows is still operating in you and around you. And while this thing that you're walking through is so deeply painful, you won't always be in this depth of pain. You won't always feel the pain that you feel today. And so, if anything, we just want to encourage you to like access whatever manna, whatever grace and strength and nourishment is there for you today. And that might look like you barely get through the day. You keep yourself alive, you keep your people alive, you do your best to fulfill your responsibilities, and it's just barely enough. And we're saying that's good enough. That's great. You're nailing it.
Yeah, we're going to baptize that as a success.
Exactly. And as things move forward, or for those of you who are not experiencing loss, you're just experiencing the fear and anxiety around transition, you can do this. And it's going to be amazing. And there are going to be stories that you tell years from now about how awesome this was in ways that you did not know it could be awesome, which I'm going to end with this. You don't know this, so I'm just going to prompt you, and you can take a second if you need it. I'm wondering, do you have any encouraging stories of a transition you might have experienced, whether you chose it or it happened to you, that ended up good or great or amazing in ways that surprised you? I think if you could tell something and I could tell something, I just want to leave you guys with like a story that can inspire you, that you also have your own stories too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I will stick with the leaving preschool to do something else one, because that's just so top of mind, and maybe a little less emotional. But having exited. I worked at preschool and was like, this is it. I found the bottom layer of everything. I will save the world by carrying these children safely to 5 years old, and then their little brains will set, and then 100 years, all new people, and they're going to be better. And it felt so amazing. And then when that wasn't the thing forever, when I like really needed to go, I just like needed it so bad, I looked for jobs that were super part-time and quiet and beautiful, and everyone keeps themselves alive. Like these are my criteria. Like I literally need the world to be more quiet and I need it to be beautiful before my eyes, and I just need the stakes to come all the way down. Like the stakes to be so low and just recover inside from the intensity of even the good parts of teaching preschool were so intense. The stakes were so high, and I connected them to saving the world. So I made them higher.
And you cared so much. You care about these kids. You care about their families.
Yes. And they really could die any second. They try.
Exactly.
Really
Thank you.
Try to die.
This is like all parenting for us, the parents who are like, they could die any moment. That's terrifying. You feel it.
That's right. Very intense. And I could go to jail if they die.
Right.
So what I found on Craigslist was a vintage store that sold like furniture and vintage interiors. And I ended up managing that store. It was very beautiful. It was very quiet. People like come in super noisy from the street, and then they walk through these big doors, and this like hush comes down because everything's beautiful and old, and there's kind of this interesting like reverence. It's also a little fancy, so people like get quiet in fancy places.
I walked by this store. I went there and I didn't even know I was near it, and I was texting you, and then I was like, oh, I found it. It's so cute.
It's
I can
so
picture
beautiful.
it. It's beautiful.
And it's got these
Super
big
beautiful.
giant doors, and you look out on the mountains of Santa Barbara, and you're just in this like the train comes by a few times a day and sort of shakes the building.
Cool.
So pretty and so quiet. And I was like, this was just like, I'm going to do an easy, dumb job that doesn't matter. And then what ended up, like while I grieved the loss of what I thought I was going to do forever. And what I learned there was I started to run their social media, and I started to do like help build out the e-commerce branch of things. And I was forced to learn how to take photographs. And I was like, I don't know how to use this camera. I don't know how to hold this. I don't do tech things. I don't do visual arts. Like, get out of here. And the owners were at a point where they were like, no, we're handing this off. So you're going to figure this out. And also one of them was super skilled in the area of photography and things. So he like really trained me and taught me.
So cool.
And I found this skill that I had no idea that I would have. I ended up taking so many photos of all this beautiful styled furniture every day that it like blew open this creative capacity that I did not know was there. I had been so constricted and tight and scared around doing things like that. And that having to learn how to use that camera is the precursor to like the art that I'm trying to make, to my ability to like film and produce this podcast and make content for the internet, and like all of the things that I want in my life. Like I want to make art with my life now. And I wouldn't have known that I had any kind of capacity in that zone without having like been forced to learn this skill at a job that was supposed to just be like calm.
That's so cool. And what a beautiful culmination of these things now, because here we are using everything you know as Miss Lane. And then what you've learned with the camera and the production of all of this. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I would say one transition that comes to mind that I was really afraid of, well, it would be 3 transitions. It would be the transition of adding all of my children to my life, and my big fear of becoming a mom, and like, was my life going to be over? And then here I am, and I have always cared a lot about women. I think I was raised by 2 moms, and I remember like as an 18-year-old wanting to understand like, what is the design for women? Like, what are we made for? Because you hear so many things about women should be this, women should be that. And I just felt like, but I want to get it. What is this life about for them, right? And then that has stayed with me, and I've always wanted to be a communicator. Like even when I was young, I remember some friends were pursuing modeling, and I was like, oh, that looks fun, but you wouldn't get to use your words. Like I would want to use my words more than just be a posing person, whatever. And then I had kids, and through that really scary experience, I met 3 of the loves of my life. Eloise, Wilson, and Jules. They are absolutely worth every hard thing that it has taken to have them here. It's been above and beyond what I could imagine for my life with these guys, honestly. And there's even still hard moments, but I'm like, oh, I wouldn't trade it. These kids are so worth it. And it's opened up this opportunity to speak to women. And the thing we have in common is motherhood. But the thing that like drives me is, I don't know, I love the hearts, the minds, the way women work, the capacity you guys have, the struggles you have, the depth of like relating, like the way you feel. I don't know. There's just something beautiful about it. And so I love that through having kids, I not only get the joy of parenting, which is better than I thought, and definitely so much of my fear. I'm going to say this very carefully. I think some of the examples that I had were women who were not well cared for mentally and physically. Had they been better cared for, and which is like our heart, I think they would have thrived in motherhood more. And then I would have understood that being a mom could be an awesome experience.
Yeah.
So it's not to blame someone, but I think like if anything, I'm blaming the lack of care for moms that would make us then think becoming a mom is the end of your life.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of women, that was their story. So then here I am getting to have these kids, enjoying them so much that like I would consider having more kids. I don't plan to, but the thought is this, like, oh my gosh, if there's another one of those little guys in here, like, let's get them out. I want to know them because they're so cool. I love them. And then at the same time, being able to use all of these gifts and skills and cultivate new skills to speak into the lives of women who are also moms and dads now. It's like a whole thing. I don't know. I think that to me has been a surprise, a pleasant surprise. And it makes me really excited for what I'm doing. And then also the big transition to Spain, which was like a super bumpy one for any of you who followed along as it happened. Even that ended up being one of the best things ever. And I would love to do it again. And the way that I now have like a love for European women and European families and the different cultures there. And I don't know, when you go through hard things, don't you think it creates like an empathy or compassion in you? Like it's so easy to be like, we should all do this until something knocks you over. And then you're like, oh, wait, no. Yep. Everybody's going to do it their own way and we should all love each other better. I feel like that.
Yeah. It's very cool to
helpful.
Run into your own limitations or realize that like, oh, I hadn't accounted for this kind of experience.
Yeah.
And then it just softens your edges a little bit and opens you up and expands you to hold more perspectives and more ideas. I mean, any transition is a new experience, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much in a new experience that will make you a better person.
Yeah.
It will make you more yourself. It will force you to find new pieces of yourself and see yourself from a different angle than you had before. Any partnership that you're in, it's going to make you know that person more. And it is going to open you up to relate to different kinds of people than you might not have been able. You might not have had a way in to see their perspective before.
That's right.
And that's just always, those are some things that are always true about all transitions.
Totally. Yeah. I'll use like a churchy picture, but you'll get it. But like, I felt like in my early 20s, we did a lot of preaching, which we quite literally did some preaching.
Same.
But it was like this idea that like, I will speak to you from my microphone and you will be down here and I will be up here and I will speak to you guys about how it should be. And then we went through quite a lot of hard things that surprised us, tumbled me down. And then I thought like, I never want to do this again. And maybe it's a bit extreme, but like, if I'm ever gonna speak to a group, I want to be at the same level and I want to be speaking from among the crowd. And I mean, logistically, that doesn't work as well if you're like delivering a message.
Sure, but metaphorically, it's
thank you. It's
spot
the
on.
idea that like I'm among and I'm just sharing what I think I see.
Yeah.
And also I'm open. Like, do you have something I don't see? Let's talk about it. I may not agree with you at the end of this. You might not agree with me, but we can still be like together because that's what all of life is this togetherness. I think that was healthy for me. And so I've still been someone using my words as we are, but definitely from a place of like, we're with you. We're all the same level and we're just trying to figure this out. And I might have expertise in an area, but you have expertise.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
I love it.
Cool.
I love it. I hope that's so helpful. I have this mechanism inside that's like, this is my phone number. Call me if you need help. I just want to like hold everybody through
We
the whole
kind of
thing.
have that though.
Yes,
Join Very
yes,
Good
in
Mothers
the call.
Club. I'm serious. If you want real value, if you want friendship, you want to access us, you want to share what you're going through and receive support, you can even host Zoom calls yourself or meet local moms. Now these moms in the community are hosting events themselves. It is like $15 a month. Maybe it's $15 a month if you pay all at once, $20 a month. I can't really remember. I should know this. My point is, it's not that much.
Yeah.
It's less than like you guys going out to dinner. And unless Sean and I go out to dinner, we probably spend less than that. But like, it is worth
So impressive. In Los Angeles,
He's
that's out of control.
I take care of yourself. Invest in yourself. It will be worth it entirely. And we will see you on the 4th Tuesday of the month.
Yes.
Correct? I'm looking
Yeah.
at you like, that's right.
That's right. The 4th Tuesday of the month. In fact, are you still doing free trials?
Yeah, we're doing free trials. Yeah.
So use your free trial on the week of the 4th Tuesday of the month. Come see us. Tell us what you're going through. See if you like how it feels.
Yeah.
And, there's just, there are ways to access us and get in here.
Exactly. And if you buy from Very Good Mothers Club, I'm telling you this like I'm surprised by it, but I do pack the orders. You get a free month in there. We've been sending them out. How generous.
Get some socks, you guys. The socks are phenomenal.
Socks. I forgot about the socks. Anyway, okay, you guys are great. Thanks for listening. We believe in you.
Love you.
We love you. You're doing great. We'll see you soon. Bye.